we go. We're going live. Hi, Kathy L. Murphy, the Pulpwood Queen, and I'm here with my executive director, Mandy Haynes. Mandy, you look precious tonight. That is so cute. Let me get you added as a co-host. And we also have with us tonight our ever popular and who I always look forward to see how she's going to come as which character. We have our WAGs here from our show tonight. This is Ruthie Landis, who is our author from Chicago, Illinois. So for all of you watching it live on Facebook, we will have it later. It's recorded and downloaded up on our YouTube channel. But tonight, this was a selection that was brought to me by Mandy. So Mandy, I want you to tell a little bit about why you told me we need to watch this film. And I have to tell you, I enjoyed it so much. I've watched it twice. It's fantastic, but I'm gonna let you tell a little bit about it.
I don't even know where to start.
It's
There's
hard,
so many,
isn't it? It's really hard. Well, let's start when it was filmed. It was filmed in
well, it was filmed, it was a 2008 British comedy, but it was like set in the 1900s, early 1900s. And it's based on a novella that was written in 1936. My Talks with King Stanley.
That's right. And this has some amazing actors in it. And it was even nominated for the Academy Awards for film. And it has in it Peter O'Toole, Peter O'Toole has always been one of my favorite actors of all time. Lawrence of Arabia was what I was trying to think of earlier. I just watched his film the other day. And now in this film, I don't even know how old he was when this film was made, but he pretty much steals every scene, wouldn't you say? He's fantastic.
Oh, and I love how he starts out when he's so, like how we were laughing about the wheelchair. He didn't even need the wheelchair. He just wanted to be pushed around. And then
I have to tell you that he was, I looked it up. To me, he looked like he was 90. He was only 78. That's all he was. Yeah.
Well, he was always a thin man. And of course, he's of that era where they didn't get plastic surgery. So
He did get plastic surgery. I read all about it.
Well, I want to hear more. I want to hear more. Wow.
He had a nose job. You know how his nose was so different in the earlier movies, if you look, and then he, not exactly Michael Jackson, but kind of, that was that. And they weren't sure, but they were pretty sure that he had like a facelift, because you know how tight his face looked in it. It didn't animate the way his eyes animated, but it didn't animate his normal way.
He really knew how to pop those eyes in this film, didn't he?
And they were still gorgeous blue, right? But
oh, beautiful. And his voice, just everything about him, like what a curmudgeon old man. But then when you realize why he was that way. And I love, so the description, like for the plot, it says, the narrative is called a surreal period comedic tale of canine reincarnation, exploring the relationships between father and son and master and dog.
Yeah.
And I don't even know how to bring in the dog thing, but it's about reincarnation. And towards the beginning of the film, which really got me, was there's this Indian cricketer who has taken this ballroom and turned it into a cricket place. And then every Thursday or whatever, they met once a week.
Every Thursday. Yep.
Yeah, every Thursday they would meet once a week, and they would go to a museum or they'd check the paper, but the son suggested they go hear the Swami. And it wasn't exactly what they expected, because he was dressed very much the proper gentleman of the time, in the three-piece suit and everything. And all the women in their fabulous clothes, and they were in this club, and they have the cricketer come in and introduce him, and then this man speaks. And honestly, I was kind of like them. It was like kind of, over my head. But what was interesting about it is they brought up the subject of the reincarnation, and that's where the story comes into play. But the interesting part, and I don't want to give anything away, but the interesting part about this movie is there's a liqueur involved. And this liqueur is very obscure and very hard to get. And there's other people that are brought into the story. It's a New Zealand film, and because they have Brian Brown, who I don't know if you remember him, but he started a lot of New Zealand films. He's a big actor over there. He was in the Thornbirds, and he was excellent as the husband who wasn't so nice. But all the actors in it are absolutely spot on. Fantastic.
Yes, Sam Neill is phenomenal.
The bomb. Hi, Wandra.
Oh my gosh.
Hi,
I love him
Wandra.
anyway, but that's,
Sam Neill, I mean, he rarely does anything comic. He's not, and yet he balanced, the seriousness of it with, the dog. And that's all I'll say. But, when I taught acting, I mean, one of the things you would often do as an exercise when you would be working on a role would be, you would say, okay, if I were an animal, what kind of animal would I be? So when my dad was in Cat on a Hot Tin Roof, he was a white bull elephant, and he would walk like a white bull elephant. So you do that as a way to find, the body and movement and kind of impulses or instincts of your character. And I just thought Sam Neill was like, he's speaking articulately and everything, but
about stuff that is hard to comprehend and to believe. You have to have a certain mindset to understand where he was coming from. And he never cracked a smile.
They call it a comedy, because I would not have thought of this as like the first time I watched it, I did not think of it as a comedy.
But it is funny. It's funny and it's sad, and it's funny and it's sad. And yeah, I mean, the sad part is the arc, right, of Jeremy Northam, who another fine actor.
And didn't do great in this too. It's like the cast.
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
And that he was the one who wanted to take his father because, to this reincarnation speaker, because he felt that his father was so cut off from his feelings of loss, and
because he lost his son, his other son,
his wife, and the
right,
mother.
and his
and
he acted so cold, like he didn't care, but he.
It reminded me a little bit about, we read one of the books that we picked some time back was the story of Ov. Do you remember that? And that was the same. This man was very bitter, and you couldn't understand why he was so angry. But I've learned that from things like this, when you watch it, when you see somebody that's like this, doesn't it make you wonder what happened in their life that they become this way, so shut off? And the son was wanting to reconnect with his father before it was too late, because his father was of age, and he was his son loved him. And I thought it was one of the most beautiful love stories between a father and son. There's not a whole lot. I think A Big Fish by Daniel Wallace that was made into film. That was a love story.
Film.
But there's not a whole lot of films about the river runs through it. Maybe I'm trying to think of another film of father and son. Oh, if you ever read the book Father and Son by Larry Brown, that's one of my favorite books of all time. It was never made into a film, but it should have been. Larry, we lost him fairly young in his life, but I love the story from this male perspective. We read a lot of women's books and watch a lot of women's films, but it gives great insight into the masculine viewpoint.
And it's funny, the first time, y'all, I have to tell you, I was out, I had surgery and I was out of work for a couple of weeks. And one of my coworkers' husbands said, Mandy, you need to watch this movie. I had no idea what it was about.
I didn't either.
So I didn't know about the reincarnation part of it. Like I didn't know. So I'm watching it. And when he drinks like that liquor, and when Sam Neill sniffs that and he's sniffing it,
He's
and
like,
I thought he looks just like a dog. And then once he goes and I was like, he's remembering his life as Wags. And so when he and then like the line where he says, when I barked, I was enormous. It's like,
and just the beauty of where he comes to around death, and that the healing is that he says, when Peter O'Toole says to him, was there pain? Because that's what he was disassociating from with his wife and his son. Was there pain? He could not let himself go there. And Sam Neill just goes, we were there and then we were no more.
and it's, don't you love too how, like, I mean, what a great, how you said that. Like, it was also his dog, because when Peter
Yes,
O'Toole, who is so against all of that and such a skeptic, and when it's like he cannot deny that he is talking about it's Wag, his dog. And so when he starts to realize it, and don't you, how it's like how the lines ran where it was the dog, but the wife and the son, and it's like, it was just so beautifully written in the movie, the characters, the stories, because I just loved it so much.
So I just want to say, I wanted to ask you all your opinion. It never was explicit, but
No.
was Brian Brown the other dog?
I think that's, definitely. He could have
Did you get a feeling like they had this weird?
Well, all these people
symbiotic-
coming
Because, and then
together.
what their lives were like now too, they were still too, like Brian, Brown was like a little rascal, still getting it. Speaking of dogs, I'll be right back.
Wandra Cheng has joined us from San Antonio. Wandra, did you get to see the film?
I just finished before I came here to get
Oh,
on. Yeah, as far as people walling off after a great loss, it doesn't just happen to men, it happens to children,
absolutely.
women. Yeah, it's a way of protecting yourself because they cannot handle it, right? We in Asia, we have this idea of reincarnation. Because Hinduism is basically, Buddhism is take off from Hinduism, just like Christianity is off of Jewish religion. And so, we commonly say, for example, I helped my sister when I went to Korea, stayed there for about 3 years. That was after my divorce. And I had to settle our family after my father had passed long time ago. Anyway, so I stayed there for about 3 years, and my sister was going through a hard time, so I helped her. And the expression is, I must have been very kind to you in my previous life.
I love that.
Right. See, that's how we think. Some of us think.
Me too. Definitely.
I am beginning to think that way. I have never had that exposure before, but I've had too many things happen in my life that have made me wonder if, where incidents have happened where I know I've been there before, but I know I haven't been there before, but it's so familiar to me. And we brought this up when we were with Carolyn Leavitt. We talked about this a little bit when we were discussing her at our online book club meeting. But I'm going to tell you, it's all things, and I think the older we get in life, the more we think about these things. So when I watched this film, it was just a comforting
Mhm.
feeling. And, I think all of us love animals so much, but when you love your animals so much, it's a comforting feeling to hear that story. And it was one of those where it surprised me because I've never seen anything like this film before. Have you?
Not like this, not exactly, no. I
No.
want to just say about that, the whole thing about, not just have I been here before, this feels so familiar to me, like you have this resonance with India and so forth. But my friend Joy, who my best friend who passed away, when I first met her, we were in training together, psychotherapy training, and I had not known her. She was from North Carolina. It was in upper state New York where we met, and it was a module there. And I walked through the door. I'd been assigned to her as my roommate. And as soon as and she was about 15 years older than me. And I walked through the door and I looked at her and I said, there you are. And she looked at me and she said, yes, here I am. And we never met each other in our lives. And then we became best friends for 28 years.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah. I think I've had that same experience with my friend Margie. First time I met her, she goes, we're going to be best friends. I go, yes, we are. And Mandy, we've talked about this too, how you've had people come into your life and things like that. And look at how you've come into my life. It brings up so many. It's a wonderful conversation. And the novella was written in 1936.
Yes.
Wow.
Was it called the same thing?
My talks with Dean Stanley.
I'm going to have to find it because I think I'd really like to read it. After watching the film, I would really like to see how close they were for comparison. So for those of you listening out there, Dean Stanley was our film. And I forgot to send it to you, Wandra, but I watched it on YouTube. That's where I watched it.
I watched on Amazon. I paid $3.98 or something. It's much easier.
I always go to, when I can't find a film, I always go to YouTube. And especially if it's an old film, a lot of times they're on there. And it was on there. Plus, there's a lot of, for all those that are listening out there, there's a lot of other little interviews and things that relate to it where they're talking to Sam Neill and different people. And those are always so interesting to me. So thank you, Mandy, for recommending that film.
Yes.
I hope everybody
welcome.
watches it. It was just fantastic. And for those that may be just now viewing, we have Ruthie Landis, who's our Chicago author, who is dressed as Wags the dog from the film. And to understand the connection, you're just going to have to watch it, watch the film. Is there any other things we haven't discussed about it without giving the plot away?
Well, there's a line in the movie that stuck with me, and it's only closed minds are certain.
Yes.
That's it. Oh my God, I've quoted that line
Yeah.
this week since I saw it. I have quoted that line so many times, I can't tell you.
Yeah, because
That is
that's
so true.
only certain is when only closed minds are certain. So
Yep.
Yeah,
and
because
then in the line I love where when Peter O'Toole is talking and he said, well, you do know that in any given time, there's only seven, I can't now, I'm paraphrasing, but only seven great
dogs. Seven
And
great
so
dogs.
I tell my three, and this is like, and so when people because the memory pops up with me telling them, it's like, how did I get so lucky that there's only seven and I have three of the seven? That means there's only four more out there.
that's such a great story. Well, next week, we're going to do another film that Mandy has recommended, and I haven't seen it yet, everybody. So I'm dying to see it. I'm not sure where you can watch it yet, but
I think you can watch it on Amazon.
okay, tell everybody about this film.
Okay, I'm going to pull it up because it's been a while. Oh,
I am dying to see it. And it's set in the past.
yes. Hold
What
on,
is-
Mrs.
me-
Henderson presents.
and it's got
Mrs.
Judi Dench in it, y'all.
Oh, God.
Judi Dench. Oh, well, you know it's going to be good.
Yep.
What is that? What is the title again?
Mrs.
Mrs.
Henderson presents.
And so it's so Laura Henderson, that's Judi Dench, buys an old London theater and opens it up as the Windmill, a performance hall which goes down in history for, amongst other things, it's all new reviews. So it's in a time when let me see if I can find, hold on, I want to make sure I've got the timeline right. And then when you find out why she does what she's doing, and like she gets so much grief from so many people, but then when you realize her whole reasoning behind it, it is a beautiful story.
I think I've seen this film. I just forgot.
I know I've seen it. If I
And
never.
Bob Hoskins,
Yeah.
she
Bob
hires Bob
Hoskins.
Hoskins as the theater manager.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, it is great. I know which one this is. Okay. Wow. And
Yeah, so it's like 1940, 41.
this
So,
will be
so
great.
Kathy, you'll have nice outfits for that.
Absolutely. I'll
The
have
40.
something I'll come up with, and I will be back home. I will be back home. So I will be able to get into the magical closet.
So y'all two have both watched it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think-
I'm pretty sure.
Oh, yeah. Well, as soon as you said Bob Hoskins, I went, oh, yes. Wonderful film.
Do you remember fried eggs?
Yes. Wonderful.
When she's like, sort of resembles fried eggs. We laughed so hard. So if you don't remember where that line's from,
We may have to watch
laugh.
it tonight. We may have to watch it tonight, so I'll be ready for next week. And it's every Saturday night, everybody, at 6:30 p.m. for the International Pulpwood Queens and Timber Guys Book and Film Club. And next week, I'll be back with Mandy Haynes, and hopefully Ruthie and Wonder, you'll join us for Mrs. Henderson Presents. So any other things we want to talk about?
Did you all reincarnation? The idea of reincarnation.
Do I agree with it?
Before I came on, did you all discuss about the idea of incarnation? Because that's how the movie started with.
Yes.
Yes,
Right.
we
Talked
did.
about-
We
You
did.
did.
We didn't go into it really in depth. Is there something you'd like to add?
Well, that's the idea of Buddhism, right? There's no hell or heaven. And because Buddhism, the major tenet is life is suffering. So the heaven is sort of like there's no suffering. So in order to get there, you have to let go of your desires, right? Even human beings, relationships, obsessive relationships, material things, and so forth. So the desire itself is causing this suffering. So the idea is you die and you come alive again, and maybe as a dog or as a butterfly, and you go through the whole life cycle to reach that point where you can let go of everything, of your attachments. And so when you can do that, the heaven in Buddhism, the equal meaning of hell is when you don't come back to life, to suffer. So that's why in Buddhism, you do not consume meat, any animal products, because that could be your ancestor, that could be somebody reincarnated. That's the whole idea.
That's fascinating. I did not know that.
Well,
that's
and
the
what's
whole
so cool-
idea about reincarnation. And I had a person in New Orleans. I didn't like New Orleans that much because it was when I moved there with my two little kids. It's a very it's a city with great prejudice against all races. It wasn't just against Blacks. When I came here, I didn't know any bad words. I didn't know anything. And they had names for every ethnic group, Italians, Polish, Jewish,
Right,
Jack,
right,
all
right.
of this. And it was really bad after Vietnamese came, the boat people came. And so I wasn't very fond of it. And we picked up, we had a house built there. But even before it got sold, we picked up and we left and we came to Austin. But anyway, when I was living there was a woman I befriended, and she was from another state. And she said, I had to come to New Orleans. I just had to come to New Orleans. I feel like that's where I should be. That's what I was from in my previous life. And this was a white woman, American woman. And she used that. So it may not be just, you know what I'm saying? Maybe there is a memory from before. I'm not very religious, but it's possible.
I will
Well-
just tell you that I'm trained in past life regression and in hypnosis. And even if you are not, you know, I don't know if you've read Brian Weiss's books or I've studied with him, but you can have amazing stories of a spontaneous regression and where are you? And people who have phobias and traumas, if you do a past life regression and you get back to where did this trauma begin? It may have begun many, many lifetimes before, and now you've come to heal that in this particular lifetime. So it's not something that is at the forefront of my work, but I will have someone in a hypnotic state and they will be somewhere else in a whole other time. And it's not like I'm inviting that. It just spontaneously happens.
Wow. Wow,
Well,
this
and
is so interesting. Yeah,
Well,
go
the
ahead,
thing, and the
Mandy.
thing about the movie was it wasn't reincarnation. You came back as a dog. It was a dog who came back as a person
Correct.
who came, how I took it, he came back because he knew that his owner, his master, was going to need him one more time.
Exactly, because
And
there's
that's
these
how
soul,
Dean,
right, these soul contracts that we have with others, with our
Yeah.
animals and with other people too. Yeah. Yeah.
It's all fascinating to me because I'm at that age in my life where I question everything. And you're a product of how you were raised. And then at some point in my life, and this happened decades ago, I started questioning things. And now especially from what you just told me, Wandra, makes me want to know more. You know what I'm saying? I'm fascinated by other religions and cultures and people. And I don't see, it's just like that saying, if you're absolutely, what was it you said, the line that
Say
you
that, Mandy, give the line again. A closed mind is
only a closed mind is certain.
only a
And
closed
see,
mind.
my mind is open. I'm an open book. So I'm curious about all of this. So the movie was fascinating and it is perfect for any kind of discussion. So if you're with your, movie watching friends, please watch it because it's a great show.
You'll want to watch it. You want to watch it again because I've seen it now 5 times because the first time you watch it, you're all about the
Right.
story and what's happening. But then you'll want to watch it again because how, Ruthie, when you wondered if Brown was the other dog that wagged, well, when they meet and they stand and they
I
kind
know,
of
and they
blow
do
up
this
and they
Yeah.
like,
circle each other, just like dogs. Yeah.
And it was like these people came together. And so when people are put in my path, now I really pay attention. I mean, I really pay attention. So
the movie's so good because there's so many little tiny little subtle details.
Yes.
They just did such a great job with it.
Yeah, in Buddhist saying, when you walk on a busy street and you're moving that way, another person is moving this way, crowded street, you touch the sleeve, and that's not by accident.
Yes. Yes.
That's not by accident. That's the same. So we are born on this earth, in this age, right? There is, they add a heck of a lot of meaning to all that.
And Jungian psychology and the whole thing of synchronicity. How did I happen to be here at just this moment and have the synchronistic thing happen?
I mean,
Because
what's the odds of having two people who do the same thing that's kind of specific? I mean, I pay attention to that too, don't you, Mandy? That's really interesting.
Yeah.
So it's great hearing you guys' insight. What did you think about the film, Wandra? Did you enjoy it?
I came in as you were discussing that it was a comedy. I don't see comedy in it unless you go deeply into what the meaning of comedy is. But it's how it's about grief, right? And how you overcome the grief. And it may take that kind of soulful experience to be awakened.
Oh, we just lost Wandra. Are you there? Oh, there you go. I'll give you a good example of that too. My sister and I said, I want you to watch the Kaminsky Method on Netflix, which is fantastic with Michael Douglas. And I love this movie so much. And my sister's perspective, I found it a wonderful love story between two men. And this man who runs this, studio of teaching actors to the master the craft, and then his best friend is an agent, and their relationship is hilarious to me. But my sister thought it was the saddest show she had ever seen in her life. So we all bring our own experiences into it, and every film that I find has the funniest scenes in it. My sister finds the saddest scenes, like Steel Magnolias. To me, to this day, the scene at the graveyard is one of the most incredible scenes I've ever seen played out on screen with Sally Field, and she just saw it as the saddest film ever. And I found it very life affirming. So it's just all depends. But I think when you watch it over and over, each time, like you said, Mandy, it brings on new insights and new nuances to the little things that you missed the first time.
And comedy and tragedy, they are right up against each other. They're just teetering near each other, just like love and hate. And any great comedic actor knows that to be a great comedic actor, not just like a slapstick comedy a comedian, but a great comic actor must always have truth, deep truth to it. And so and I feel that great dramatic actors have to also have a sense of humor about it. There has to be that little edge. And I feel like that's what I loved about it. That's what I loved about it. It was just moving seamlessly between these ironic moments or these moments when a character is caught, like when Peter O'Toole is watching Sam Neill, tell the story, and Peter O'Toole is kind of this, curmudgeon-y guy, and he's caught in this irony.
And it's just
this big enlightenment, Yeah. So
well, it's just like in writing too. When you write,
exactly, it's
like when you write, like you have. I love it when people say that they laugh. And like Eva is a hard story. It's hard, but I've had so many people say how they laughed and cried at the same time, and I'm like, that's because isn't that real life? Real life. I'm like, my cousin was going through. She had cancer, and I was spending it with every weekend with her. It was some of the hardest things, but we laughed our butts off almost every day that I was with her.
That's the way it is right now.
That's life.
With me and my sister, we have laughed so hard. It's just been, but I think that's how we get through the difficult times, So anyway, I can't thank you all for joining me tonight. I'm really looking forward to the movie next week. And you think it's on Amazon?
It popped up. It's on one of, it's either Netflix, Amazon, or
I check them all.
HBO. Because I have all
Well,
three. Because and they
we'll
it
check 'em
popped
all.
up that it was showing.
Well, I'll get it posted up on our calendar so everybody knows what's coming up next week. So 6:30 Central Standard Time. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Mandy, for being here. Robert's doing some author events and things right now as he prepares getting ready for his book. And I know everybody's busy. This is the busiest time of the year, but thank you for joining me. And it'll be up on YouTube, my Kathy L. Murphy channel later tonight after I get it downloaded. So thank y'all so much. Have a wonderful night, everybody. I love y'all so much.
Yeah,
Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.